Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring you your fight picks for UFC Apollo, where the main event will be Jacare or Ronaldo Souza taking on Jan Blachowicz, or as we call him here, Blachowicz, in the main event. We got a pretty good card here. We got pretty much all the fights crunched. Let's go through them. Here's the show. Alright, in our main event, I talk about it a lot, but what we have here is a conflict of styles. And so in Jacare, we obviously have a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu submission grappler. In Blachowicz, we have a world-class kickboxer who does have some grappling ability. I don't want to make out like he has no grappling ability. He actually has more submissions than he has knockouts, but I think that his real bread and butter, especially, coming off that Rockhold fight and showing, his great takedown defense, showing that, he had a little bit of wrestling in his back pocket, and showing that he hits like a freight train. And I think that a lot of this is going to come down to striking out of the gate. Now, Ronaldo, he is a very good striker. He has knockouts over some guys like Weidman, right? He has wins over guys like Derek Brunson with head kicks. He does know how to get victories if it stays in the feet. However, if you ask guys like Tim Boach, what it's like to get submitted by Jacare, it's bad too. And in this one, I think it's honestly going to end up being Blachowicz's fight because he has enough of the submission or anti-submission, let's call it what it is, takedown defense game, that I think he's going to be able to keep Ronaldo standing, and I think he's going to be able to outclass him on the feet. I believe that if this thing does get to the mat, though, Blachowicz also has good scramble ability, where he's going to be able to resist the top game, resist the control of Jacare, and I believe that Jacare will not be able to get it done. However, international card, okay, keep this all at a grain of salt, just like last week. We didn't do so hot, but I had said international, stay away. This one is international. Jacare is a Brazilian fighter, so if this thing does somehow make it to decision, which I don't think it will, to be honest, but if it does make it a decision, I think the judges will err on the side of Jacare. So if you are thinking about going for Blachowicz on this, just keep that in the back of your mind that, he's probably not going to win on decision unless it's very, very decisive. Otherwise, it'll probably be a split for Souza. So in the main event, we are picking Blachowicz. Moving on to our co-main. This is an interesting one because, again, it's about that stylistic matchup. Mauricio Rua, great Muay Thai kickboxer, right? Back in the Pride days, guy was an animal, right? Going up against Paul the Bear Jew Craig, a phenomenal grappler, a guy that can choke you out anyway. And my initial, reaction was to say, hey, Rua is probably too long in the tooth. He's probably going to beat Craig. However, when I do the numbers here, I do actually have Rua picking up the W. So this one's kind of interesting. I don't factor in the, kind of hometown, that this could be his last fight potentially. He's 37. He hasn't looked too great. Actually, I'm lying. He hasn't really look, well, you know what? He's actually looking okay. Let's knock it back here a little bit. His wins over Nogueira, Corey Anderson, John Vellante. He does have a loss to Anthony Smith, and then a win over Tyson Pedro. So even though, I think, maybe I'm still thinking back to when he lost had this kind of downturn with Gustafsson, Sonnen, Henderson, and Oben St. Preux. He's actually kind of snuck his way back up the charts here in a way that I hadn't really thought about it. We haven't seen him fight since about a year ago, so he's kind of been off my radar, man. I'm talking bad about the guy. He doesn't honestly deserve it. So, this makes my my call all the bit sweeter, right? I think that Rua, in fighting in Brazil, I think that where he is in his career, he's obviously coming off some wins. He's looking pretty decently recently. I think he's going to be able to get the win here. We know that the Bear Jew isn't always the best performer. He has a hard time with strikers. He's lost to Tyson Pedro, Khalil Roundtree, Alonzo Menfield, all via strikes early on in the first round. If you can pour it on Craig early with great striking ability, and you don't try to push it to the ground, that is a problem. If you do try to take him down to his world, I think that Rua has it locked up here. I think that Shogun Rua is going to be able to pick up a win in Sao Paulo. We're picking Mauricio Shogun Rua in the co-main. All right, in the next matchup, we have Charles Do Bronx Oliveira taking on Jared Flash Gordon, and this is an interesting fight. It continues the grappler versus striker affair. So we know that Do Bronx has the most submissions in the UFC. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's coming off a great win streak here. The guy hasn't lost since 2017 when he last fought Paul Felder, and he's basically choked everybody out except for Nick Lentz, who he knocked out in kind of a surprising affair in the second round. When I look over at Gordon, he's having kind of a rough go of it recently. He did get a win over Dan Murray, but he was knocked out twice in a row back in 2018. In this one, however, and you're going to be a little surprised, I actually have Jared Gordon picking up wins here. I think he's going to derail Oliveira in his home country of Brazil. So, the numbers just shake out that I think Gordon's striking ability might be able to outdo Charles Oliveira's grappling ability. Now, this is a kind of a tough one for me to swallow. I don't honestly, if you asked me myself, I would totally say in my gut Oliveira picks up the win here. But the numbers are saying Gordon, and I know I haven't been too right recently with some of this stuff, but I'm still going to go with the numbers here. I'm going to go with Gordon. I think he's going to be able to strike his way to victory. I think that he's going to be able to put a hurting on Oliveira early, and I think he's going to be able to shuck the takedowns to keep it standing. If not, Oliveira gets him to the ground, I think it will honestly be over, and I think Oliveira also should be at that point looking for some kind of a real contender to make a claim to get a shot at Khabib potentially, because this would be the best grappler in the 155-pound division, hands down. 18 submissions over 27 wins. I mean, this is the kind of guy that you might be able to throw at Khabib, assuming he can keep getting wins. This guy doesn't get a lot of love, I don't think. He's fought some good opponents, and maybe his time to shine was against Paul Felder. That would have been his way up. But look, Clay Guida, Cristiagos Giagos, Jim Miller, David Tamor, Nick Lentz. When is this guy going to get a real top contender? I think Oliveira deserves his due. He's still pretty young. He's only 30 years of age. I think that after Gordon, if he does get a win, he's got to fight somebody great. And we'll see what happens. Gordon, like I said, though, I got him picked here on the pure numbers. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to go Jared Gordon. But based on everything I said about Oliveira, you probably know who I think might actually win. And also, international card, Brazil. Oliveira's from Brazil. Gordon's from the U.S. So take this one with caution. Either way, I'm picking Gordon in this one. All right, because the rest of the fights on the card, I have limited information, to talk about these guys. It's just not as much color I can provide over them. I'm just going to go over the bouts and who I think is going to win in these contests. I think that'll make things a little bit smoother here and stop me from kind of just trying to paint a picture with a limited palette. So in the next contest, we're going to have Antonio Arroyo taking on Andre Muniz. I think that Muniz has some really good experience here, but I think Arroyo looks really good right now. I think he's going to be able to pick up a win in this one. He's just looking really good out of the Dana White Contender Series, back-to-back victories, and I think he's going to get his first real win in the UFC. Next contest, we have Marcus Perez and Wellington Turman. In this one, I have Perez selected. Again, he's looking like a very, very good fighter. He obviously did have a slight derailment to Andrew Sanchez, but he got right back on track with an anaconda choke. This guy's submission ability is there. He's very good. He's also a Brazilian fighter, and I think he'll be able, again, to pick up a win here. In the next contest, we have Sergio Moraes and James Krause. I really like James Krause. The guy is on a real hot streak right now. He has wins over Warley Alves, Alex White, Tom Galcello, Shane Campbell, Darian Crooks. He hasn't had a loss since 2015. Granted, he did take some time off, but he fought in 16, 17, and twice in 18. So he might be getting back into, the real game here and making a statement in Brazil. I think he's going to be able to get a win over Sergio Moraes. However, just know that Moraes is in his own country, and things could get tough. But Krause does have great submission game. I think that he can get it done. I'd like him in that contest. In the following contest, we have Ricardo Ramos taking on Luis Eduardo Garagori. And in this one, I believe that Garagori is going to be able to pick up the win here. He's an undefeated fighter. He has one fight against Humberto Bandone in the UFC, but he did win via unanimous decision, and he was looking phenomenal coming into the UFC. 4 KOs and 6 submissions over what was his 12 wins earlier. Now it's at 13 with the 1 decision in the UFC, and I think he's going to be able to pick up a win here. I really like this guy. I think that he's going to be the better performer. In the next contest, we have Francisco Trinaldo and Bobby Green. So in this one, we know that Trinaldo, he brings wars to the table. This guy does not go out easy. But I like Bobby Green ultimately in this one. I think that he is just a really good balanced fighter. And if he can hit Trinaldo with some good shots, he will put him down or potentially submit him. The only thing is the heart, the effort. We know that Trinaldo has no quit in him, so Green is really going to have to dig deep into his skill set to pick up a win against a guy as tough and weathered as Francisco Trinaldo. So I'm looking forward to this one. This is probably the dark horse fight of the night just because of how tough Trinaldo is. We'll see if Bobby Green has the skills to pay the bills and shut down all comers in that one. In the next one, we have Worley Alves and Randy Brown. In this one, I like Randy Brown. He obviously is not from Brazil, but I think he's just a really good fighter. He's a good striker. He has some decent ground game, and I think he's going to be able to beat Alves here. In his last win, he beat Brian Barberena. He did lose to Nico Price, but Nico Price is a phenomenal athlete, and he was able to shut down the wrestling game and pick up a win over Mickey Gall. I think that Brown here is going to be the better, more well-rounded fighter, and I think he might just be one notch above Alves right now in his career. I believe the Rude Boy here is going to pick up a win. In the next one, we have Douglas Andrade taking on Renan Barão. And in this one, it's very hard to call because Barão has not been doing very well lately. He has 4 losses in a row. Aljamain Sterling, Brian Keller, Andre Uhl, and Luke Sanders all straight in a row since 2017. The guy hasn't had a win since 2016. Even before that, he lost to Stevens and Dillashaw. So, it's been a really tough ride since basically Dillashaw kind of took his career back when he took the belt as All King PEDs. And, with Dillashaw out of the picture and a lot of, changes in 135, what does this mean for Barão? He used to be on top. Now he's kind of at the bottom. I'd like to see him come back in this one. I think he can come back. I think he can pick up a win here. He's from Rio Grande. But I think he can pick up a win here, and this is kind of a tough call because of how bad he's been doing lately. But I think he can get a win over Douglas Silva. I think that Silva, isn't the greatest talent in the world. He does have some okay wins against guys like Enrique Briones, but he did lose to Rob Font, and he did lose to Peter Yan. So we'll see what happens. Although he did beat Marlon Chito Vera, and we know how good he is. So. In this one, I'm going to go Barão, but this guy has 19 wins over his 25 wins over, 19 KOs over his 25 wins, so it's a tough one to call. I don't know. We'll see on that one. Take that one with a grain of salt for sure, but either way, I am picking Barão. And then the next contest, we have Ariane Lipski and Priscilla Cachoeira. I like Lipski in this one. Obviously she's the more attractive fighter. She's the violence queen. And even though she's had some tough contests coming into the UFC, she did fight Joanne Calderwood and Molly McCann. Those are 2 fighters you do not want to mess with at this weight class of 125 pounds. So I think that taking on Cachoeira is going to be a good way for Lipski to get a win here. We know that Cachoeira doesn't always perform great. She has 3 losses in a row to McCann, Luana Carolina, and Valentina Shevchenko. She doesn't have a win yet in the UFC, and I don't think she's going to get a win here either. I think she's going to get bounced soon. I think Lipski picks up the win. And then our last contest, we have Tracy Cortez taking on, they changed her fighter, Vanessa Mello. And in this one, I have Cortez. She's looking like a pretty good talent. She did get a win on the Dana White Contender Series, and she hasn't had a loss since 2017. In her first outing, she's 6-1. I think she's going to be a new up-and-comer. We'll see how she performs, but I ultimately think she is going to get a win. She was originally supposed to fight Duda Santana, but I think that fight was switched out, and now it's going to be Vanessa Mello filling that one in. So I'll go through them one more time here for us. We have Blachowicz or Blachowicz, Rua or Hua, Gordon, Arroyo, Perez, Kraus, Garagori, Green, Brown, Barão, Lipski, and Cortez to round things out for UFC Sao Paulo. So we'll be back with a retrospective to at least go over how the picks performed. I know I did kind of a weird one last time with throwing in the Heineken beer review. I just hadn't watched the card. I saw some highlights, and I didn't think it was worth going over everything. I normally will when I at least see some of the fight, but if I don't see this one, I'll probably do something similar. I hope you enjoyed the little beer review I threw in too, and I hope it was, decent enough for you. Granted, we didn't perform that well. I always kind of throw out a grain of salt with these international cards. So we'll see how things end up going here. There are some calls, as I went through, picks like Barrow and picks like Hu over Craig. I'm not the most confident about those. So just take that all, like I usually say, with a grain of salt. But anyways, until I speak with you again next time, which will be on the retrospective, happy fight picking.